Welcome to Distracted, the podcast with Angela Lockwood, the place where you will find practical brain-boosting strategies, expert insights, and real-life stories to help busy brains thrive in the age of distraction. Let's go. Welcome to Distracted, everyone. I'm Angela Lockwood, and today I am interviewing someone who we're just having a chat off air about how do we condense this conversation into something that doesn't go over hours and hours. And that's going to be on me because I have so many questions I want to ask her. And today I'm joined by the amazing Tina Tower. Now, if you are a part of my world, you've probably sort of come in contact somehow with Tina. She is the founder of her Empire Builder, an online education for female course creators. And I would say probably the best online education platform for female course creators. And I will, for matter of just disclosure, that I was a member with Tina, and she has been so pivotal in helping me scale my business, in understanding so much about the business world. And she doesn't just do that for me, she also does it for women all across the globe, not just around online courses, but speaking, podcasting, publishing, content marketing. So you can see why I've invited Tina to talk to you on Distracted today. She's also the host and of the podcast, Her Empire Builder Show, which is definitely on my top list. It's an amazing podcast of Tina's content, but also she has the most amazing guests. And she's also the best-selling author, just to add a few more things to her credit, of $1 Million Micro Business and One Life. Both books are front and center on my own bookshelf. Now, Tina, I could run off so many other amazing achievements she's done, but I just want to get to talk to her. Tina Tower, welcome to Distracted.
Sanj, what a beautiful introduction. It's always a bit awkward, like when you're on and people are reading that. It's like when you're going to step onto a stage and you're like, yeah, that's me.
Like, I didn't realize I did all that.
Like your whole life's work just condensed into a couple of sentences. So, I mean, it should be good, right?
Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how we could condense it into a couple of minutes for you. Like, I was thinking, how do I introduce Tina to my audience so that they go, I need to listen to her? But you just need to listen, because I know, Tina, as I said, I've got so many questions. But the biggest thing that having connections with you in your world, you have the most positive, amazing energy, such high energy, but real positivity, and your work output is like no one I have ever seen. So I want to start there. Is it always like that? Or do you have certain habits and practices that give you the ability to switch your energy on and off as needed?
Both of those things. So I would agree. I always used to, like through my 20s and probably early 30s, I used to be filled with this, why can't everyone get things done? Like I get things done. Like what is wrong with everyone? It took me a long time to figure out that I don't work like normal people work. I don't work like most people work. My energy, when I think I am having a bad day or I'm a little bit down, I will talk to like you call them normies, like people that are like the average person. And I go, oh my gosh, like on their best day, I'm still like, my energy is still higher than my worst day kind of thing. So I think I have a very innate optimism bias. I think that is just part of my personality, and there's nothing that, I think that just comes through a lot, and it's something that I've become very, very grateful for as I've gotten older, because I realize that a lot of people, like sometimes I'll talk to people, I go, God, that must be hard to be in a headspace that's always so pessimistic and always so glass half full and always so just exhausted and energy zapping. Whereas a lot of the time, I cheer myself on quite well. Like I take very seriously, we're in our head all the time. I'm quite kind to myself a lot of the time. But then with habits, I have developed a lot of habits throughout the years. So I just hit 20 years in business, and I have ADHD. I was diagnosed before it was cool, when I was in my early 20s, when it was very rare to be a woman and diagnosed then. And so I was on medication for a couple of years going through uni, and I really didn't like how it made me feel. It felt like it took away my magic spark that I had, but I also found it very hard to perform in the way that I wanted to perform. So I worked with a really great psychologist and did a lot of behavior management, different techniques and things that has carried me through to now. So I think that has been extremely helpful.
That energy is really interesting because from an early age, then you've obviously had that, and you were in business like super early, weren't you?
Yeah, so in high school, I had 3 jobs. In year 12, I did 4-unit English, which meant I only went to school like about 12 hours a week. So I was working like all day, every day, all night, and then I would sleep for about 6 hours and work again. And when I started my business, I would go to uni in the morning, then I would run the business in the afternoon and I had an educational toy store and tutoring center. And then for the first year, I would then go and do like work at the local trade union club until the middle of the night, and just did that every day. But I mean, that's a young woman's game. That's not me now. Probably for the last 10 years, I sleep 9 hours a night on an average night. Sometimes I'll get to 10, but I need sleep. I've needed sleep a lot more as I've gotten up. Probably since I had kids, I have slept a lot, and I need that. It makes a very big difference to me. And I also don't work ever longer than a 10-hour stretch, which I know is a lot of time, but I used to be able to very happily just the little engine that could and never get tired. Whereas now I get tired. And so I got adrenal fatigue like 2015 was when I was diagnosed with that. And that took me a couple of years to get over. And so even though I think psychologically my brain could keep going, the effect on my nervous system was not great after a long time. So now, even though I feel like I could often push through a lot of different things, I will physically stop at different times and go, you just have to rest your body and your mind. And so I'm a lot more disciplined with that now than I used to be. Yeah.
I think a lot of women probably listening to you share that story are probably going, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, yeah. I feel like that. And as you sort of touched on with having a diagnosis of ADHD, I've interviewed quite a lot of people here on Distracted with ADHD, and particularly women who are being diagnosed. Like, we've seen three times more diagnosis in women in the last 2 years in their mid-40s. And I find that really interesting for many reasons. And I'm trying to better understand that myself, because I'd love, if you can, I'm just going to stop there because I'd love to know your thoughts on that. There's a lot of factors that come into play with women with being distracted or women with hormones. But yeah, why do you see, and you work with women all the time who are often very high achievers, who are very high output, ADHD, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the increase of women being diagnosed?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. I do think, like, part of me goes, is there really that many people with it now? Or is it just being thrown around quite a bit that if you don't fit into this very neat square box that you're going to be diagnosed in some sort of way? I don't know. But it's also very different. Like, I have friends that have been diagnosed with ADHD and they present extremely differently to how I do. So I go like hyper focus. I go like a bomb could go off around me, and there's no, like, I resent having to go to the bathroom because I'm like, but I'm right in the flow. Like, I get obsessed. And my energy doesn't really wane, but it's like that toddler energy. So we'll go like 100 mile an hour and everything will pour out, and then I go comatose. So it's kind of like those two extremes, but I don't know. I mean, I've had a few people reach out to me that have known and gone, this is what I'm doing. I'm feeling distracted. I'm feeling really like I can't focus and different things. And I think a lot of that has to do with the world that we live in now. I mean, how does anyone focus when we're being thrown with so many different things and so much information all at the same time? And there's so many competing responsibilities. And I mean, we're recording this. It's second day back for me at work, and I'm training for a big hike. And so I've been walking a lot in the last year. And a part of that, for the last couple of months, has been getting the hours up for the hike. And so you're supposed to do a 4-hour hike twice a week and then an hour on other days, of which I'm going, what woman has 4 hours available in the daylight to go walking? Anyway, but I've been trying to do 2. And that's kind of as good as I can get, and then hope on the day that I can do it. But today I was like, I slept in till 7:30, and then I woke up and took a little bit of slow morning. I'm like, and then I have a massage booked this afternoon. And so I'm going, well, I don't have time to walk and do the work that I have to do and have my massage and hang out with the kids and we just have too many competing responsibilities all the time. And so I think it's this constant decision fatigue in going, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? What is going to fall off the plate? Because we literally can't hold everything that we want to a lot of the time.
Do you think that ability to hyper focus that you mentioned has allowed you to become a multi-million dollar business and a very successful businesswoman, but also very successful, mother, doing all these amazing things in your life away from business? Do you think that ability has allowed that to happen?
Yes, 100%. Yes. I don't know how. Sometimes I will talk to people and, if I'm in a coaching capacity and I'm like, what are you working on this month? And it's like, I'm working on my webinar funnel. That's what I want to do this month. I'm like, all right, that's a Tuesday afternoon. What else are you doing this month? Like what else is happening here? And I do think that it's something that I've had to learn is that a lot of people can't sustain the pace that I have sustained. And it's something that, sometimes I'll feel bad talking about it because I don't necessarily think it's a learned skill. I think there's some of it that probably is. I am extremely disciplined. So one of the things that I learned, like when I had that behavioral psychologist that I worked with in my early 20s was being I wasn't naturally organized. Now I'm hard pressed to find someone that has better organization systems than I do, but that was 100% a learned skill. And so because I used to call it side missions. I would always come up with a side mission, and then that side mission would become like the thing. Nothing else in the world mattered except that side mission until I got another idea for another side mission, and then it dropped it like a hot potato and went to the other one. And so now I have learned over the last 20 years to become very, very disciplined in going, what's important to me, and spending that time planning and then putting it all in a very chronological list and literally not letting myself go on to the next thing until that thing is complete. And so I think that in itself is something that a lot of people don't do. They wish they did, but they just don't. And I don't allow myself to procrastinate. So if I ever catch myself kind of getting distracted and going off, I'll bring it back in. I don't use it all the time now, but if I notice I've fallen back into the habit. So for me, it's social media is a big thing. And I know that's probably a big thing for a lot of people is if I am doing something I don't want to do, I will notice I'll open up Instagram. It's like my thing. It's my first tell that I'm either bored or I don't want to do it. When we get in that stroppy thing and you're like, but I don't want to. And there's a lot of things as business owners that we have to do that we don't want to do. For people that say only do what you love. I mean, there'd be like a quarter of the business that I would do. The rest of it, you can take it, but we have to do those things. And so I have them all on my list, and I'll use Pomodoro, like the desktop app, and I will run that, which I don't do long term because I notice if I do it long term, it actually gives me too much anxiety. So for people that haven't seen Pomodoro, it's like a countdown timer, and it gives you your countdown and it stays in the top of your screen, and then you stop at the end and you don't get distracted in that time. And then it'll give you a 10-minute break where you get up. I usually get up, I'll walk, I'll do some squats. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'll do that, or I'll stretch because I had a lot of health issues from just sitting on my ass for too long. So it helped with being able to do that. But I can't do it long term, or I actually get too much anxiety from racing the clock. I try and go faster because the clock is there, and then I'll exhaust myself.
I remember a psychologist once was saying to me, before you get distracted or before you realize you don't want to do something, take a step away, sit, meditate, think about it. And I remember just thinking, I don't want to do that. So how do you, it's just I don't want to sit there every time because I'd be meditating the whole day.
Right.
And, I'd be removing myself from the desk. And so in saying that, what do you do in those times? So, those tasks that you don't want to do, how do you keep yourself from not procrastinating? You know, it's one thing because I use a Pomodoro app as well, but sometimes I'm like, not right now. Like I'll literally say to it, just no,
Just leave me
I'm in
alone.
flow. I'll press pause. So in those moments, like, do you rely on willpower, or is it just that you're practice so much over time that it's become second nature? Like, what is it when you, what's your stop point where you just go, oh, Tina, nope, right now you need to do this?
I think it's both the things. So if I'm doing something I enjoy, I will stay in the flow and do it. But there's different, like I think a lot of our success as humans depends on how much we can understand ourselves and how we can get the best out of ourselves so that we have the most balanced life, whatever that looks like to you, and the most joy coming in and the most spaciousness and all of that sort of thing. And so I've found from year to year, it will actually switch for me depending on, you know, what my focus is for that year. Or like we were saying before I hit record, that last year I had a very different year to what I'd had before. I didn't coast, but I was a lot less ambitious for growth than I have ever been before. This year, I'm kind of bringing the discipline back into it again, but it was really nice to have a year of feeling like I was coasting. So a lot of the time I will either oscillate between when I'm batching my day. So I batch everything. My normal work week, the days of the week are different. I'll have like week 1 of the week is all about content. Week 2 is all about calls and admin. Week 3, I have a totally blank space. So week 3 of every single month, I can either have it off and be on vacation, or I can just work on whatever I feel like working. But there's never anything I have to do. And then week 4 is always like media, interviews, like face-to-face sort of stuff. And week 5 are just like bonus weeks that we get 3 times a year, which are like magic weeks. But I work like that. And then I will often make days of like, I know this sounds ridiculous. I don't think I've actually talked about this before, but like days that suck. So I used to start my day with the eat the frog principle, where you start with the hard things so then you can get them out of the way and do the things that you enjoy. And I found it really hard to switch between the different modes. So what I've found works much better for me in the last few years is to have like full days of face-to-face and I'm just doing nothing but talking to people. They're the days that I'll, put some mascara on and go all out. Sometimes I'll even do my hair on the rare occasion, but they're the face-to-face days. But then I'll have other days that are 3 days in the month that are days that suck. And they're the days that I will put everything I don't want to do, where I have to do all of my account reconciliation, where I have to do all of my team planning and management and reviews, like all of the things that I don't like doing. And I'll put them in that day, and I will usually, I don't know, it's like a psychologist might listen to this and think this is terrible, but it works. And this is the thing. It doesn't matter what anybody says. You've got to find what works for you. And I'll usually stay in my pajamas because I'm like, this day sucks. And I just like fully get into that mode and go, well, this is work. It's not super happy fun times today. This is the thing I have to do to enable me to have this beautiful life that I am so lucky to live and get to do. But it means I've got to do things that suck sometimes. And so I will do that. I will get in. It's usually 10 hours. So I do like 30 hours a month of things that suck. And I just do it, get it done.
I just love that. And if the people who are listening, we obviously will have the show notes available. But one of the things I would also really encourage you to do listening to this, very much on the theme of being distracted as well, is anything that Tina's talking about, because she's just shared some really amazing insights into the habits of a very successful businesswoman. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm struggling myself, or I want to scale, like, Tina's been there, done that. She's still doing it. So don't lose this opportunity just to listen to it and go, that was a nice conversation between Ange and Tina. Actually use it as really great points and write down and go, wow, Tina said that, the sucky days. And also listen to Tina in sharing her insights, because very rarely do we get the reality. And that's one thing I've always loved about listening to your podcast, Tina, and reading your book. A lot of people who have had the success and have created the success that you have very rarely pull back the curtains and go, hey, this has all happened because of really hard work or because of those tricky times. So for those of you that are listening, don't waste this opportunity is what I'm trying to say. Write down the tips that Tina's talking about and her own strategies, and maybe try them for you and see if they work. But on that line too, Tina, one of the things that really annoys me sometimes that I listen to business people is when they've had success, or when they're sort of at the other end and they're retiring or whatever they're doing, they then talk about the importance of slowing down. They never talk about it in the first 5-10 years of that. You always have, and you've always been really open about that. Can you tell me a little bit about your learnings through your business journey? Has it, do you have to do the grind and do the hard slog and push, or have you had the insight of 20 years down the track of going, oh, I should slow down now?
Yes and yes. So yes, I've had the insight. But yes, I also think the grind is necessary. And I know that it's not cool to say that now. Like, a lot of people go, and I want to be really clear in that I think that you need to work hard and grind is very different from like the hustle mentality. So I don't think you should work yourself into oblivion. However, a lot of people that I've spoken to, especially in the last couple of years, we're sold like this Instagram dream of, I can work 10 hours a week and become a millionaire. No, you can't. I have been around so many extremely successful people, and even the people I know that say that don't do that. Like, it's maybe they're just counting like their sucky work as that work, but you don't do that. And I think it does a massive disservice, especially to people in their first couple of years of business, where they're working so hard and they're going, what is wrong with me? Why am I working so much harder than everyone else and I'm not getting the results? And it's because it's bloody hard. Like, there are so many things to do when you're getting a business off the ground and into liftoff with your marketing and figuring out like your brand, your messaging, your website. Every time you want to make a funnel or send an email or set up a challenge, or it's going to take you a lot longer than what it is going to like a couple of years time. Everything gets easier as you go, like especially that 0 to 100,000 is the hardest part. You're so overworked and underpaid. It's ridiculous, but you're kind of never going to get to the other side if you don't put in that groundwork. And so I do think to a certain degree, you have to work hard. I was talking to someone like just the other day that was saying, I've only got 10 hours a week. I want to build a 7-figure business. I was like, well, good luck. Like, I'm sure it happens occasionally, but I haven't seen it. And so I do think that a lot of people either lie or they don't know how long they're actually working. They're not auditing their time and figuring that out. So I think that there is a certain amount of hard work that is necessary. And if you are in the weeds and you're working hard, then you're probably right where you need to be. And hopefully you're going to be able to hit that tipping point where instead of being overworked and underpaid, you're then going to be underworked and overpaid. But I don't know, like one of my favorite quotes that I had framed on my wall for years and years was, entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And that I think is really true. So after I got the hardest part, and what I talk to with a lot of my friends that have also built a lot of business success, is changing that mentality and knowing when you no longer need to hustle, when it's like, hey, you're there, you don't have to work like that anymore. And then flipping your mentality to going, okay, how can I outsource more? How can I delegate more? How can I actually like tame it back so that you're working on growth? Or changing your perspective. Like, I know last year was a big health focus for me. I'd gained a lot of weight over the previous 10 years, just very slowly year on year, from sitting too much, from not moving my body too much, from just metabolism, like all the different things. And there's different areas that I would sacrifice at different times. We have the 7 areas of life. Always my most important was work and family. There were some years I was the crappiest friend because if I had half an hour, I could have the choice. I could either call a friend or I could do more work. I chose more work. If the kids were there, I went to the kids. And so now I tend to choose friends, and I tend to choose family, and I tend to choose health over everything else. But there's a time and a place for all of that as well. And I do think that you need to have, no matter what stage you're at, a really good something outside of work that's going to give you that motivation and give you that love and happiness that you're going for. I mean, I know you've just got back from Canada as well, Ange. I've just got back from a month off, and having that time, like, it's something we have always done as a family, is we take a month off at Christmas. I've always been very cognizant to have vacations, have time off. So I will batch and work really hard in those batch times on when I'm on. But then when I'm off, I'm super disciplined in being off. Oh, you'd love this. Have you seen the light phone?
Oh, no.
So I got a light phone like 2 years ago-ish, maybe. It's a simple phone. You've got, like, it's only available in America, so I got it over there. It's a pain in the ass in that you've got to put your SIM card into it, but it only has phone, like calls, traditional calls, text messages, and podcasts. That's it. And so on a Friday, because I don't work on Fridays, so on a Friday I switch my SIM card over, because I used to have two phones, have two numbers, where I'd just leave my work phone on the desk and then I'd take that one. But then I'd find, like, whenever friends and family would text me, it'd come to both phones, because they're like, I don't know which one you've got. I don't know who you are right now. And so I was doubling up. So now I just do that and switch, because I know that I don't have the distraction, the discipline in this modern world to spend my weekend and not spend an hour scrolling my phone. If it's right there and I'm like just sitting there out on the back deck, I'll do that. And I noticed I was reading a lot less because I was scrolling on my phone. And anyway, so I started a whole lot of that to give myself more spaciousness.
Yeah, look, I love that. The first episode of Distracted Back, I actually shared, like, the 4 weeks that I had in Canada, we didn't put an international SIM card in.
Nice.
Because, and I tell you what, it's probably I think you're probably aware of this, me and social media, we don't have a great relationship. Never have tried. I've really tried to repair that relationship so many times, but I have to admit, I loved not being able to be contactable. People could, we had Wi-Fi and things like that, so that was okay. But it's really interesting, because I hear a lot of business people, they are really in a state of conflict around working on weekends to working during the week. And because they're like, well, if someone contacts me on the weekend, that's potential work, or that's, I need to be on social media and responding because I'm in that growth phase. Do you think that that's a good sort of mindset to have, particularly for people in those beginning stages, or are you like, start good habits from the beginning?
Yeah. And I think, like, a lot of women that I've worked with, like, we learn boundaries the hard way, right? Like, it's only when we're like, if another fucking person contacts me, I'm going to kill them. Like, you get to that stage and then you realize, oh, hang on, it's me. It's my fault. Like, I'm the problem. It's me. And I used to be like that. Like, when I first started Her Empire Builder, and you were there in the early days, and we had a very active Facebook group, and I felt like if someone asked a question, I needed to answer that within a couple of hours. And so I was just like a slave to this group constantly, because I wanted to give people value. I wanted to give people the answers. I didn't want them to be lost. Like, that's what they're paying me for. But then I realized I was not going to be around in a couple of years. Like, there was not going to be longevity, because I was going to have a hissy fit and say this was not going to be worth it, and I would have burnt it to the ground. And so I had to bring in those boundaries. Now I'm off from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's no response there. And I half think, if someone's not willing to wait for you over a weekend, like, they're not a boundary person either. They've got their own shit they're trying to deal with. But a lot of the time people will respect you more for having those boundaries and go, all right, like, I know where those parameters lie, and do that. It's also much easier if you don't see it. So one of the reasons I used to have, like, my normal phone, and I would go on social media or Facebook, whatever it was, to communicate with friends. And I would see people asking me questions for work, and then it would, like, live rent free in my mind all weekend. I'd go, they asked me that question, I should get back to it, but I'm not doing it until Monday. But I'd seen it already. And so just not seeing it is very, very helpful. Physically being able to turn it off is very, very helpful. But with your relationship with social media, because I know we've talked about this a lot, Ange, and I'm in two minds, especially after the Meta update that just came out where they're taking away fact check. Like we're in AI, in the way that Meta has so much control over our lives and what we think and believe as humans. Like it's very, very scary. And so I get in two minds about it. However, it is currently in our world the easiest, most effective way to connect with our clients. It is so good to be able to utilize if we can be boundaried with it, if we can use it for what it is designed, well, not what it's designed for, but if we can use it what we want to design to use it for, and then not go down the rabbit hole of doom scrolling or reading too many comment sections or like going into conspiracy theories or doing all of the stuff, then I think it's really helpful to be able to use it. And you're missing out on a lot if you're not using it, because there's still, like, I've met great friends through Instagram by just cheerleading each other, and then you meet in person, you're like, oh my gosh, it's you from the internet. Like, that's amazing. So it's still got its really positive things in it, but who knows where it's going to head in the next couple of years.
Well, on that note, one of the things, Lita, I'm hearing so much from you is about boundaries. Like boundaries are so important. It sounds like you've got them in family life, business life, technology. The introduction now of AI. Now, you are systems queen, systems person. You systematize things like it is a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, and they're color-coded and beautiful.
So if anyone's ever, they're just like not a systems brain and you are wanting to run an online business, I would not even bother trying to do it yourself. Go straight over to her Empire Builder, because I can guarantee you Tina has thought of every single possible system that you could ever need. So,
and I did you see Course Quickies? It was a very quiet launch, but I launched a site called coursequickies.com at the end of the year, which is just systems. Like, it's just for quick buy systems. So you can go
like, if you're listening to this, you can't see Tina's face just light up. If you're watching the video here, you can see it, but Tina's smile just went even bigger. Just say systems and Tina's all, she's happy. So let's look at AI then, because how, I guess, AI would have changed your business quite a lot. And I've seen through your work that you're educating people on how to use AI in their own businesses. What do you, I guess, how have you been leveraging AI so far to help you stay on top of things, but also streamline things even more when, you've got things streamlined as it is?
Yeah. It's been incredible. So I think that the business that I run now, a couple of years ago, I probably would have had 6 or 7 staff running, where now I have 3. So it makes a big difference in terms of, there's still a lot. I think sometimes it gets more hype than it deserves, because there's still a lot that you still have to put a lot of thought into what you're doing and ask really good quality questions to get good output in there. But using AI as your own assistant and as an assistant for your assistants is incredible. Like custom GPTs, beautiful. Sintra, beautiful. Like there's so many different things that we can use to shortcut our time or to bridge the gap between when you're staring at like a blank page with a blinking cursor and just giving you that outline. But I do think very, very quickly it will go to where human thought will be even more important, because we'll get sent all of this really vanilla sort of content. And people can tell, like you can tell even when it's been written really well with good quality honed custom AI to have your tone of voice and all of that sort of thing. When it uses your own personal stories and when you're telling it from the heart, like you can always tell the difference with that. So I think that when we're getting more AI content fed to us, that will become even more obvious. I've even noticed with the way we're presenting on social media, more polished videos and like AI generated content isn't doing anywhere near as well as super unpolished, like just stick my phone up in front of my face while still wearing my pajamas sort of content. So humans still like humans. But in terms of streamlining and systemizing, there is not really a function in our business that isn't being helped by AI now. Like it's in everything. It's in our team management, it's in our marketing, it's in our accounting, it's in our reporting, it's in everything. Yeah.
Interesting. At the end of last year, I was doing a whole lot of workshops, and I was quite amazed at how many people. So it was all about basically staying focused in the age of distraction, and how many people still weren't aware of even what AI was, or
Yes.
I mentioned ChatGPT, and a hand went up and said, "Sorry, do you mind explaining to me what's ChatGPT?" And like for us in the world of business, it's so integrated into our business, but for so many people, it's really quite amazing that a lot of people, I don't know if it's fear, maybe it is a bit of fear that people are like,
I think it's just another thing to learn. Like we just went back with my mastermind, which I'm a part of, not one that I'm running, but I'm a student in. And I was talking about AI. So I put out a course in November last year called AI for Course Creators on how to make all your custom GPTs. And I am the babyest business in this mastermind. They're all like, the next person does 5 million a year up to 15 million a year. No one had really got around to it yet. So they were using ChatGPT and they'd had a dabble with like a couple of custom GPTs, but no one like had one for all of their team members and all of the different functions. And so when I showed them what I was doing, they were like, "Oh my God, that's insane." And so now they've all done my course, which I was like really, I was really nervous about it, going like, there's such incredible, like all the names that are people in there, everyone in course creation would know every one of their names. And so I was like, what are they going to learn from mine, right? And so they all did the course and they all were like, this is the most mind-blowing thing. I'm like, really? You haven't done this yet? Like, how have you not done this yet? And so I think there's still a lot of people that haven't just got around to it yet because we're so busy, and it's just look like another distraction. But when it is used effectively, my gosh, it saves a bucket ton of time.
Yeah, and you're right that there's so many apps. Like how many, even for people who are listening that are parents, like how many apps are there to manage life admin, let alone business? And there's always so many logins. And I often hear that AI feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's almost like that hurdle, and I'm sure you've done it a million times in your business, Tina, that learning something new makes you feel like a student and doesn't make you feel, you sometimes don't feel very bright when you're learning something new. You just got to push through it, don't you? Because on the other side, you're like, yes, I've got it. I know what I'm doing. You've got to
get used to that. Like I feel like an idiot every week. Like as I've been learning about AI. So my favorite tech conference every year is South by Southwest in Texas. So I go there every year. I've only missed it when COVID was on. But the year before COVID was when I first started like hearing a lot of it was focused on AI content. So I think that was 2019. So it's been developing for quite a long time, but I'll still try, like I'll see someone talk about a different app or a different AI agent or a bot or different things. And so I'll use it. And I have built tons of them that have been shit. Tons that I have, paid the $1,000 subscription for, set it all up and gone, this is actually not that helpful. Like it's good, but it's not great. And so, I mean, I do see part of that as my job in trying things and figuring out what's actually worth your time and effort and what's not. But I think for a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole and spend all this time and effort and money on developing something if it's not going to solve my issue. And the other thing is things are changing so quickly. So we got a program called Cast Magic middle of last year to do all of our podcast stuff. It's like, it is magic. Like you put your podcast in, it does all your show notes, your social media or your clips or your captions. Like it's beautiful. It's such good quality. But then late last year, Descript, which a lot of people were already paying a subscription for, bought out nearly the exact same thing. So it's kind of like you're going to end up for a lot of business owners with a lot of like an app stack that is a bit messy for a bit until it settles down, I think.
And then you look at it all and you're like, oh, I should change over to there because that has that one feature. Yes. And then you end up spending days of just trying to transfer data over or learning it. And so it just sometimes adds to the complexity, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So I wanted to just sort of take a little bit of a different angle because I feel like, there's so many different parts of your business and who you serve. Slight different angle when you're working with business owners. Okay. So, and you're helping support them through some of those challenges. What are you seeing, I guess, is the difference between those businesses that do scale really well or, the people that scale really well and those that don't? So have you noticed any patterns in habits or any sort of commonalities between the two groups that you're sort of like, I guess from the outsider's perspective, you're like, oh, if only they did that, then this could shift?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing what they are? I know
I'm like, yes, but no one's going to like the answer.
I know. I'm almost thinking I want to take some notes here because I reckon a lot of people who should listen to this, because a lot of people work so hard, don't they, Tina? Like
yes.
They put so much work, so much effort, not just into a business, but even like you say, you're training for a hike. You know, people put out a lot of effort and energy into things in life. And it can be really frustrating for people if they don't see it through. So there are certain habits that you see that are different between the two groups.
Definitely. And I know the exact answer, but it's not an answer that people like. But I have helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people start their businesses. And my goal when I started Her Empire Builder was to help 100 women reach more than $1 million in course sales. We're up to 7. To me, that is like abysmal. And there's a lot of people that have kind of fallen partway in between. But I spend a lot of time looking at, well, what is it that sets it apart? Why did these people get it? Why did these people not? What makes this? And now it sounds awful, but I can pretty much have one conversation with someone at the start and I will know. Occasionally, very occasionally, I'll be surprised, but usually I will know they're either going to make it in this year or they're not. And that comes down to commerciality. So what I mean by that is everyone that starts a business like loves what they do. They're usually very, very good at it. It's not, women have a lot of imposter syndrome, but I never see women that are working and they're not good at what they do. They're doing it. They're usually experts at their field. What a lot of women are not good at is selling themselves, is going, I am going to package this into a commercially viable product. I am going to be super clear about who I'm selling it to. This is my messaging, and I'm going to sell. Sell, sell, sell. That is what a lot of people don't do. They spend a lot of time doing everything else except for selling. And to give you a practical example of that, I could work with someone that for 6 months is working on building their website. They're getting it all together or building their course, taking all this time in filming the perfect content, getting it all looking beautiful, but they're not out on other people's podcasts talking about themselves. They're not on other people's stages speaking. They're not, like, I will say to someone, if you're launching a new product and you don't have 10 people that you already know that want that product and want to buy that product right now, you've got no business in being in business with what you're doing. Like, if you can't sell it instantly to someone, it's not viable. You need to be able to go, this is what I've got, and I know there's someone over here that already wants it, and I'm going to be able to sell that. And then putting all of your effort into selling for that first year. When I say the first year is the hardest, it's because a lot of the time you've got to, in my first year of doing what I'm doing now, I would run a weekly live. Every Friday, I'd go live on Facebook and Instagram. I didn't want to. I didn't love it. But that's what we've got to do, is we've got to be able to connect with people. I would go and speak on stages every month. I would run a webinar for free every month. It's so hard to run a webinar and put yourself out there. And I ran a couple where no one showed up. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about. And I will see people where no one shows up and they're like, this isn't for me. I failed. Like, I'm done. I'm no good at this. I quit. I'm out. Or they're so scarred from it that it takes them another 6 months to get the courage to launch again. Whereas I think a lot of it is, like you said before, with we've got to get comfortable being the student, is we've also got to get comfortable with that failure. Like, failure is an innate part of business, and it doesn't matter how good you are or how long you've been doing it. If you're going to constantly grow and change and evolve, which we all need to do, then you're going to get comfortable with that failure. And so it needs to always be seen as this learning curve and not take it so personally as to like who we are and what we stand for and let it chip away at our self-worth. Like, I think that is something that I see that successful people do a lot, is they will try, and if it doesn't work, they take that as feedback in a lesson in going, okay, maybe it was me, maybe I needed to present like this or this or this, or maybe it had nothing to do with me. Maybe like I didn't send enough reminder emails, or maybe I had like, you're looking at it objectively, and then, and this is the key, you go again. really quickly. Like go again, fail, try, go, fail, try, go. And then you eventually get there. And this is what I mean by when you reach that tipping point. It is so beautiful on the other side. Like when you get there, I used to hate it when people said, money doesn't buy me happiness. I'm like, have you ever been broke? That sucks. Like it is horrible when you're at the start. And I know I started my business from nothing. Some people start with a good kind of buffer. But I started with nothing, which meant if I didn't do it, like we didn't have food, like we didn't pay our rent, like we were selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace to cover rent. Like it's hard work, but you've got to do that in order to get to the other side. Now, if I wanted to make more money, if there was a trip I want to do or something, I know I can turn on that tap and I know exactly the levers to pull to be able to get that result. And that is just because I have tried and failed so many times with so many different things. So if it's not working for someone at the moment, I would say, what are the things that you see other successful people doing that you're not doing? And if you've tried them once and it didn't work out, how many times have you tried it? Now, if you try it like 5 times and it doesn't work out, it's a you problem normally. I would go, okay, now we need to go, all right, how am I showing up in the wrong way? But you've got to do that to get comfortable too. Like even when you're presenting, it's super awkward at the start. Like you'll feel super awkward and people won't buy from you because you look super awkward. But the only way you start not looking awkward is to get those runs on the board. Yeah. And so you've just got to kind of get through the suck.
Yeah. I can remember years ago, I hit 20 years this week.
Congratulations.
I can remember probably about 13 years ago standing in a cupboard with a filing cabinet, with my laptop sitting on top of the filing cabinet, so I could, because I stand when I present, I have to stand up. So I had my laptop sitting on top of the filing cabinet in this storage cupboard. And it was like the first time, it was when Kajabi was in its beta phase. So it was like so many years ago. And I was trying to, and I had it up there. I remember I was like, yes, this is my moment. I am about to go. Like my first online course, this is going to be phenomenal. And I had people registered and I'm standing in this cupboard ready and no one turned up.
Oh. And isn't it like, it's so disheartening?
It's still so clear in my mind, Tina. And I remember standing there thinking, it's a real moment for me right now. What am I actually going to do? Like I could either go stuff it, hit the laptop down, storm out of my storage cupboard and go, well, that's it. But what I did is I ended up going and presenting for the whole hour. And luckily I can talk to myself for a whole hour. Yeah. And it was really awful. It was just, and you know what, I had the recording, it was there, but also I knew that I still did it. And I look back at that so many years ago and I think I'd love to say that's the only time that's happened. I don't think I've ever presented it out of the storage cupboard, but there's been times no one's turned up. And I think what I see a lot of people who are very successful in business, that it is that resilience to bounce back again and just to go. One of the mantras actually that I had to come to myself is particularly when you have a business that's your brand. So, you know, like Tina, you had tinatower.com, I've got angelalockwood.com.au, and my business is not me, it's what I do to fund my life. Yeah. And it became a mantra I had to say to myself time and time again, that you are not, so when someone says no to you, it's not a hit on your self-esteem. Yeah. It's not you that it might have been me, you know, they mightn't have liked me, but whatever. But that was a realization I had to come to. So it was all these points of time I've noticed over the growth of my business too, that there are moments where you go, God, that was really terrible. That was a really big hit. And I know that you probably would have had times like this as all business people. What do you do to get through when you get a big hit, or when you are in that moment where you're like, hey, I'm on top of the mountain and now I'm not? Or what do you do?
Well, I don't deny it, for one. Like I think, you know, I don't toxic positivity it and go like, it's all just part of the journey, which it is. But also I'll give myself the grief moment. Like we had a launch like 3 or 4 launches ago that for no reason, and I still have no idea why, tanked. And I think my energy was just slightly off. And I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but I think my energy was slightly off, and that comes across to people. I had a little bit going on in my personal life, and my heart wasn't in it how it normally was. But it was a hit to my ego in going, I had been used to going win, 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 win. And then I'm like, oh, that sucked. Like that was not good. And it often, like they have very real consequences. When we don't do well in business, for a lot of us, they have very real consequences. I had to look at, well, the investments that I was going to make with the contractors, like I need to pull some of that back. Do I need to pull team back? Like what changes do we need to make? And so part of what I do is I try and take a helicopter view as much as possible and go, all right, what lessons did I draw from that? So there's a book that's one of my favorite books in the world called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And he talks a lot about asking yourself good questions. And so when I don't know the answer, I will often ask myself like the best quality questions that I can come up with at the time to try and figure out, where did I go wrong? How do I change it? How can I minimize that in the future so that I can then get the confidence to go again? And so I will go through all of that process and look at it as objectively as possible. But the thing is, I agree with what you said about the business isn't me, but I also disagree in a way of going, it is. People do buy us when we're personal brand. And one thing that I have told myself to get okay with that is they're buying the part of myself that they perceive me to be, which is often very different depending on where they're at in their life or what parts of me they've seen. It's very rarely, so I don't take it too personally when people knock me back, because I think that, you know, they've just seen that part and it's not relevant for them at this stage in their journey where they're at. It's the same with when people leave the membership. You know, like I used to get so upset and go, what did I do wrong? Don't they love me anymore? Whereas, you know, you were in her empire builder, you got a lot out of it, great value, and then you moved on. No bad thing, no animosity, still love it, still talk to people about it. It's just, it wasn't right for you anymore and you're on to the next stage of your journey. And so it's learning to not take those things so personally. But it is about you. Like I know I've just started a high-level mastermind and I had someone join and she said, I've watched you for years and I love your values. I love that you stand for family and kids and travel and that you're wanting to build wealth and you're helping women and you're doing all of this. Like, and to me, that's like, make no mistake, she bought in because she wanted to buy into my personality and what I project and the energy that I have. And the same thing is I will have some people will leave my membership and they will actually say on their offboarding form, it's just too intense. Your energy is just too intense and you held me too accountable and you want results all the time. And I'm not, which I'm okay with. I'm like, well, if you don't want results, like why join a business coaching program, you know? But some people want just the community. I'm like, well, go join a social club. So you've got to know what you stand for and then be able to put that out in your messaging and know that you're going to attract the right people and they're going to come and they're going to go. But also, like Oprah used to talk about this. What exactly did she say? She said, wide open heart, huge fucking fence. Yeah. Am I allowed to swear?
It's fine. One. It's okay, my first explicit. So I love you're welcome. Your first explicit.
Okay, sorry. But it was an Oprah quote. And so she used to say, and I really liked that in going, you know, you can have those boundaries and have those fences up in knowing what you're able to share of yourself while still having an open heart and still serving people in a way that's open, but also having those boundaries. When I run my live events, so I'm quite introverted, which I don't present as introverted. I present very extroverted. So it often confuses people with that. But I will always visualize myself. At the start, I do a lot of visualization and I'll visualize myself in a giant gold ball. And so I walk around the whole event in this giant gold orb, in going, I am beaming out the light and I am letting people come in, but no one gets in my bubble. And so it's always like there and it's always as warm and open as I can feel, but I'm not like getting energy sucked the whole time. And I think for a lot of people running personal brand businesses and thought leadership businesses and businesses where we're selling our intellect in a way and selling our own thoughts, that's really important to maintain so that you don't end up like, you feel sometimes and you're like, I've just been like, everything's just been sucked from me and I'm just depleted. That's something I have learned. That's been the hardest thing to learn.
Yeah, and particularly when you're surrounded by so many different people's energies constantly too,
Yes.
and like they literally are wanting something from you.
Yeah.
Tina, I knew I would do it. Gone way over more what
I know,
said.
I'm sorry. When you said half an hour, I was like, good luck. I talk so much, and I don't even know if I answered half your questions. I go off on the different tangents, and anyway.
I just love that having you on here would be of value to anybody that's listening. And I do half an hour because I know that people are, busy people, but oh my goodness, there would have been so many stop and starts to this conversation that people would have been writing notes, and please go back and listen to it. But I do have a question though I do want to ask you. For people who are listening, how can we leverage fast brains and the endless amount of possibilities that there are in life? I know that's a really big question, but there are so many things that we can do in the world. There are so many wonderful opportunities. And, I see it now with my own kids that are sort of looking at what life looks like for them post-school and see at all these different stages of people's lives. There is so much for us to choose from.
Yes.
It's so exciting. It is so wonderful, like travel. Which country do I go to? Which job can I choose? There's so many things. How can people stay focused amongst all of that while also at the same time leveraging a brain that, just wants it all?
Yeah. I mean, aren't we lucky to be blessed with fast brains though? So I have a couple of systems to be able to manage that because it's a problem that I come up with a lot. So I have a Monday board. I use Monday for all my project management where I park all of my possible futures, all of my different ideas of things that I want to do. And we're going through that a little bit now. We have similar age children that are about to, fly the coop and finish school and do all of that. And I have been talking to them about this exact thing and going, you don't need to know what to do for the rest of your life. You just need to know for the next little while, like just the next best thing. And I really think as humans, we can only choose like what's the next best thing to do with the information that we have at the time. And we totally 100% reserve the right to change our mind at any time. I think often people are too afraid of appearing flaky if they're changing their mind. But if you get a better option, go for it. Like get that better option. In saying that, you've got to know where your line is in sticking things out though also and not chopping and changing all the time. But with ideas, I will park them until I have that space to be able to do it. So last year I started 2 new businesses. I started the AI Circle and Course Quickies and a high level mastermind. So like 3 things. And that was because, and I said last year was the year I coasted. But that was because everything was parked there until I get the space. So I will set up my year with my big rocks in every month that I'm going to do. And I used to go, like the way I used to do it in my 20s was I would have 10-year plans broken in 5-year plans, 3-year plans, 1-year plans broken into 90-day action steps, broken into weekly tasks, broken into daily tasks, and all in my calendar. So like psycho ninja level organization, which probably why I ended up getting adrenal fatigue is because I held myself to too high an expectation of performance. Now I'm a lot looser with that, but I never go past 1 year because now I think in our fast-paced changing world, I don't know if the business that I have at the moment in 2 years is going to be the best model anymore. If it's not, I will adapt and change to that current market. But what I do want to do is I want to chase my joy as much as possible. So even though any business that we run is always going to have aspects that we don't really want to do. We want to chase joy in as much as possible in going like, what are your values as a human? And everyone has a different set of values. For me, I have a very high contribution value. I like to feel that I have impact. It's one of the reasons that I run a membership. I don't do high volume, low cost courses is because when I tried that, I never knew the people that were going through my program. It was all just transactional and very faceless. And I felt like the work I did didn't matter as much. And so to me, it's really important for my own psyche to know that I'm making an impact, to know that the work I'm doing is contributing. For some people, they hate that. They hate being tapped into a membership. So I think one of the things is figuring out what floats your boat, like what makes you really happy as much as possible in going, like, the work that I'm doing is valued and I'm enjoying it, and then go and do that and try and get out of your own way in all the things that come in and going, oh, maybe I can't do that because of this, or I can't do that because of that. If you want it badly enough, like, do it and then stick it until you get the result you want. So one of the ways that I stop myself from chopping and changing too often is I will go to minimal viable product. So say with Course Quickies, it's a website that I just started that has like Canva templates and Monday board templates and all the different systems. So for me, I'm like, my minimal viable product that'll make it worthwhile to launch is $100,000. So once I get to $100,000, I will then make the decision, do we want to factor in, do I want to build a team around it, or do I just kill it off? You know, it's that, but I won't start anything else or anything new until I get it to that point. So I'll keep going with it until then, and then decide, all right, do we now want to like take it seriously? Because at the moment it's not my main thing. It's kind of an on the side thing that I'm giving it a good go, but I'm seeing if it gets to MVP relatively easily or not. And so I'm not allowed to start any of my other possible futures or any of my other ideas until I have that. So that's what I do business wise. With travel wise, I also have a Monday board of everywhere I want to go. And you might think I'm a little crazy for what I'm about to say. When I was away on a retreat with a couple of my girlfriends and I was doing this, they were like, "You're a psycho, Tina." But I have like a notebook that has every year of my life. So, you know, at the moment I've just turned 41. So I'm 41 years old. My husband's 45, one son's 17, one son's 16. And so I will have their ages at all of them. And then I have everything that I want to do in my life. And I've like got it written in pencil of when I can do all of that for the rest of my life, to show myself that I can fit it all in, that I don't have to do it all this year, that the year I want to sail around the Mediterranean in a yacht, I can do that when I'm 57. I know it's coming. I don't have to worry about it. I know it's there. Where they thought I was crazy was I was like 104, year of death. What? When's Matt's year of death? I'm like, well, he doesn't want to live past 86, which is very sad, but it's written in the notebook.
Do you know what I love? I'm sure by 104, you've probably created some amazing business to make that happen. And
I don't know.
I love that, Tina. And there's just so much about what you say. It's like a mix of clarity around systems and that sort of real logical thinking, but it feels like always from what you've said and what you do is there's always this heart-centered, bigger purpose, wanting to make a difference in the world. And I think a lot of people I see get really tripped up with thinking it has to be either or. You either have to be really good at business, or if you're too heart-centered, then you're not going to succeed. But what I love with you is there seems to be this, dare I use the word, beautiful balance between having that business acumen and knowing and having very clear, not just systems, but a very clear business purpose with that heart-centered bigger purpose as well. And
I find a lot of people with the heart-centered business have guilt around making money. And have guilt around, especially like in your area of work, anything where you're serving people in health, a lot of artists, like anyone that's more in that creative or health space, I find struggle a lot with making a lot of money. And the one thing that I want to say to that, if there's people that are listening with that, is having money allows you to do the most incredible things. Like we have a whole scholarship program where we pay for girls through to go to high school in Africa that would have been like childhood marriage when they were 12 and 13. And that was something that, like, if I had no money to do that, I can't do that. To me, you can keep that heart-centered business, but it means that you have the means to be able to help anyone you want, whenever you want, however you want. It gives you that freedom to be able to do it. And as long as you're a good person, like there's some people that I know that make money in a way that doesn't align with my values, that, you know, at all costs. But if you know who you are and you're true to your values, like you should feel good about being able to do that. You're making money because you're doing really good work in the world and helping a lot of people. And then you get to use that money for however you want to in the world. Right.
Oh, it's a win-win for everybody,
Yeah,
not just for
yeah.
yourself. I love that. Tina, I think we're going to have to end it.
Yeah, cut me off, Ange.
I don't want to. I don't want to end it. It's like, I feel like I'm
first interview back of the year. I've got too many words.
on my first explicit interview on Distracted. I love that I can allocate that to you. No, I could talk to you forever, Tina, and I know you know there's so many insights that you've given just in this hour that you don't have to be in business to even take gold from that. I think no matter where you are in your life, if people are feeling really overwhelmed or you feel like you're not on top of things, take parts of what Tina has said and listen to her. She's done it. She's done the hard yards and is reaping a lot of the rewards from doing the hard yards, and will continue to do both alongside each other, I'm sure, doing the hard yards and reaping the benefits. But Tina, thanks so much for hanging out here on Distracted. I love spending time and your energy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tina. I will link everything that Tina has said. She's even shared some of the things around AI programs and things like that. So if people missed it, I'll link those at the bottom. But also please head on over to her empirebuilder.com and you'll see everything about Tina on there. And if you are an online course creator who is wanting to really scale their business and or even just start, but if you're wanting to scale, then it really is the go-to. I've seen it on the inside. It is like no other. And I don't get any affiliate links for this, Tina. I
was just thinking in my head, I should give you an affiliate link to go in your show notes. I'm going to do that. So yes, everyone, she does get affiliate links. I'm going to give it because we should be making money out of being able to commercialization, Ange.
See, that's why you got to hang around Tina for, everyone. But Tina, thanks so much. Enjoy your first week back. And everyone, thanks so much for your time here on Distracted.